So in this part of tutorial, I'll give you a walkthrough into the developing a custom Excel parser to extract your data from an Excel file and parse it into NOMAD. So briefly, I'll give you an overview of the whole concept of having an Excel file and why to use an Excel file and why to use NOMAD. Then I'll tell you a little about the already existing tabular parser in NOMAD. So we have already this parser that parses the Excel file. Then I'll tell you the reason why you probably might need to develop your own Excel parser because of some limitations, some specific edge cases that the current tabular parser is not able to handle. Then I'll show you a step-by-step development of the new Excel parser. I'll give you a live demonstration and at the end a wrap-up of the new tabular parser. So I guess it's pretty clear to everyone why Excel is like a good data repository. It gives you some tools to organize and manage your data. It has some sort of a structure. You can sort your data in not a really deep way. You can structure it in a shallow way. It's not that deep. But if you want to share your data, if you want to make your data fair and give it a bit more depth to your data, you definitely want to move your data to NOMAD and parse your data into NOMAD. So in NOMAD, we already have this tabular parser, which has several modes of action. I'll briefly describe the first one, the column mode, in which imagine you have an Excel file and you can parse your one entire column of your Excel sheet into one quantity. And Laurie and Marcus has already extensively talked about the quantity. There are different modes which I'm not explaining here, but you can check them out in our documentations, or you can follow our previous tutorial given by Area A following this link. But to give you an example of how the column mode of the current tabular parser in NOMAD works, you can imagine having an Excel file like this. You have one sheet, and in your sheet you have two columns. For example, two sets of data in column A and column B. One of your data is called my column 1, and the other one is my column 2. And as Laurie and Marcus already explained, we have this Python as YAML schema file. And in this schema file, you have the blueprint of how you want your data in your Excel file to be mapped into NOMAD. So for example, here I have this my quantity, which is holding the data in Excel sheet, my sheet, and in the column called my column 1. And here in the parse data column, you can see after NOMAD has parsed your data, it will look like this in your NOMAD. So what is missing from the current version of Tabular Parser is, so imagine you have your Excel file like this. You have you should have one row that contains your header file, and beneath these and the rest of the rows contains the data that is supposed to be parsed. And again, we have this schema file which we want to do the one-to-one mapping. So for example, under the quantities, we have atomic number, which we want to map the data from column Z in our Excel file to this atomic number. Or we want to map the element symbol we want to map the column sim in our Excel file into element symbol in NOMAD. So, but imagine you have your laboratory device is producing like 1,000 Excel file that, for example, your Excel file now looks like this. You have your data stored in one single cell, and it's not really stored in a column wise. It's not really structured, but you want to give it some kind of a structure and you want to still parse it into Nomad. So this is not currently feasible using Tabular parser. So given this, now we can use the plugins mechanism of Nomad and develop our own parser and parse the data into Nomad. So as Marcus already showed you, the folder structure of the custom parser, there are a few files that are needed to be modified, changed in order to have the data parsed. One of the most important files to be changed is the NOMAD plugin YAML. There are two important keys here. One is the main file, regular expression, and the MIME type. So using these two keys, you can define, so when you drop your file, your Excel file, Nomad will start looking for a specific pattern in your file name. And if it matches, the parser will pick it up and parse it. So in this case, for this specific parser, making a convention is my own standard, it's my lab standard. I'm calling it My-Lab-Excel-File.xlsx. This is the convention I'm making. You can make your own convention standard for your lab. Also, there is the MIME type, which should match the type of your Excel file. Now I walk you through the code. Let me quickly switch. So this is the NOMAD plugin YAML file which I showed you before. Just a quick note here about the MIME type of your Excel file. It doesn't have to be this long. This is the exact match, but as long as you change it to application, it will be working perfectly fine. Now I'm showing you the parser, parser.py, which contains the code for parsing the Excel file. So I have a function parse, which is the entry point of the parser. And I have a class, a section, as Laurie explained and Marcus explained, which contains the schema for how the data is supposed to look like on our user interface. So I have a quantity which contains an information where the cells are supposed to be parsed, and I have two other quantities which the parsed data are supposed to be put into. So once the parse function is being called, I'll extract the information. I start reading the data from Excel file, and then I start setting the data into my Nomad archive, into my Nomad entry. And also another example. So the first example, this part, I'm only parsing one single cell, and in this in the second part, I'm parsing a range of cells of Excel file. Now, in order to show you how it looks like, I have an Excel file, a really primitive Excel file. So it looks like this. I have just one sheet. I have two variables and one column, which I want to parse these two columns, these two rows, this one cell to one quantity, and these two cells as a range cell into another quantity. Now, if I create a new entry, and if I drag and drop my Excel file, so as you saw, the extension of the file should match the regular expression I made the convention for in my NOMAD plugin YAML file. So on a successful parsing, you can see that my data is successfully parsed, and I have now two quantities. As I have here, I have two quantities: my cell data and my range data. My range data contains the two values, the two rows, and one cell data contains the first cell. Now, I want to finish here with some last notes. That, as already Marcus and Laurie mentioned, you're super flexible to change and set different variables, different parameters in your meta info, in your metadata. So you have to be careful to not to change something that you're not supposed to. Also, try to make sure that you have a good documentation for your parser in case you want to share it or if you want to keep it. Make sure you have documentation for it. And in case of questions, feel free to call us, contact us through the forums, GitHub, and so on. Thank you very much.